Welcome to the better decision. If you have a debit card or a bank account, you need to know about this right now. All the money that you had in there is gone, and you actually owe Chase $895 on top of that, close to $160,000 stolen. Not through a data breach, not through hackers breaking into Chase's systems, through a phone call, through text messages, through a woman on the other end of the line who called herself Miss Barbara from Chase ATM, and the woman who lost that money did not do anything that any of us would not have done in the same situation. So that is the most important thing to understand before we go any further. The Supreme Court and Federal Consumer Protection Law have established a framework around banking fraud and customer liability that most people have never been told about. And that framework, as much as it needs to change, is the reason why banks like Chase can deny your claim and walk away even when you were the victim of a sophisticated professional level scam that exploited the bank's own security systems. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how this scam works. At every step, why it is so effective, what the law says about who is responsible when it happens, and most importantly, the exact steps you need to take right now before this ever reaches your account and what to do if it already has. Subscribe right now before we go further, because the information in this video could save your life savings. Hit that like button so this reaches people who need it. And let us get into what actually happened to Deborah Moss. Deborah is not a young person. She had spent 12 years building a savings of close to $160,000. She had just moved into a new home and was looking forward to a comfortable life after all that work. A few weeks after moving in, she received a text message. It appeared to come from Chase Bank. It was a fraud alert, one of those routine messages most of us have gotten before. Did you approve a $40 debit card charge from another state? Simple, a small dollar amount. A straightforward yes or no question. Deborah said no, she did not approve it. That was the right answer. And then her phone rang. The caller ID showed Chase Bank on the other end of the line, a woman who introduced herself as Miss Barbara from Chase ATM. Steady voice, professional tone, no pressure, no threats. Miss Barbara told Deborah that she wanted to issue her a new debit card to replace the one that had apparently been compromised. She needed to verify Deborah's identity first. Standard procedure, she explained. She would send a text message with a verification code, and all Deborah needed to do was read the numbers back to her over the phone. Deborah did exactly what any reasonable, trusting person would do. She read the numbers back. Miss Barbara thanked her warmly. The new card, she said, would arrive within 2 to 3 days. The next day, Miss Barbara called again. PS was having trouble locating Deborah's home. Since Deborah had just moved, this did not seem surprising. Over the following week, Miss Barbara called several more times. UPS was still having trouble. Each time, she needed to re-verify Deborah's identity. Each time, the same process. A text from Chase with a code. Deborah reads the numbers back. Miss Barbara thanks her, and they end the call. Deborah finally drove 30 minutes to the nearest Chase branch. A supervisor looked up her account. He looked up at her and said, "Oh no, Deborah, this has been a very active card. All the money that you had in there is gone. You actually owe Chase $895. 6 wire transfers, amounts as high as $48,000 in a single transaction, all within 1 week." Deborah had never done a wire transfer in her life. She did not even know what a wire transfer was. Chase told her to file a police report and submit a claim, which she did. 5 weeks later, Chase denied her claim. Their written response said, "During our review, we found you did not take the appropriate steps to protect your account from theft or unauthorized use. They would not reimburse her. My whole world fell apart," she said. You think of your bank as being some place that you put your money so that it is safe, but it is not safe. It needs to change. Now, let me break down exactly what happened at each step and why it worked so well. Because this was not a sloppy operation. This was professional. It was clean. It was specifically designed to look and feel legitimate at every stage. That is why it worked, and that is why you need to understand every layer of it. The first layer was the text message. And here is what most people miss. That text message was real. It was an actual Chase Bank fraud alert. The scammers did not fake it or replicate it. The text came from Chase's legitimate fraud alert system. Why? Because the scammers had already accessed Deborah's account using credentials they obtained through other means, possibly through previous data exposure or dark web purchase of account information. They initiated a small test transaction, which triggered Chase's authentic fraud detection system to send Deborah a real alert. The small dollar amount was also deliberate. $40 is not alarming. It is the kind of thing you might actually have, accidentally approved or forgotten. It does not trigger panic. It barely registers as more than a minor inconvenience. The entire point was to get a real Chase security text into Deborah's hands without raising her alarm level. The second layer was the phone call. The caller ID showed Chase Bank. This is caller ID spoofing, and it is remarkably easy to do. Technology that costs almost nothing and is available through various online services allows anyone to make a call appear to come from any number they choose. Chase's main customer service line, your local bank branch, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, the FBI, any number at all. The displayed caller ID is entirely fabricated and has nothing to do with where the call is actually coming from. When Miss Barbara called with Chase's name and number displayed, Deborah had every reasonable basis to believe she was actually talking to Chase. The scammers knew this and they counted on it. Miss Barbara's approach was also carefully calibrated. No urgency, no threats, no pressure. Calm, professional, pleasant, helpful, everything you would hope for from a bank representative. The absence of the pressure tactics most people associate with scams was itself part of the deception. People are increasingly on alert for aggressive, fear-based approaches. So this generation of scammers has adapted. They are patient, they are warm, they build rapport, they take their time. They call back multiple times over a week and maintain a consistent, helpful persona. This makes the entire operation feel authentic in a way that a single aggressive call never could. The third layer was the verification trap, and this is where the technical brilliance of the scam reveals itself. Deborah did not give Miss Barbara her password, she did not give her PIN, she did not provide her account number. She gave her a 6 or 8-digit code that arrived in a text message from Chase. That is all, but that code was a two-factor authentication code tied directly to a wire transfer request. When the scammers initiated wire transfers from Deborah's account, Chase's system generated a verification code and sent it to Deborah's phone as a security measure, precisely to confirm that the account holder was approving the transaction. By reading those codes back to Miss Barbara, Deborah was inadvertently telling Chase's own system that she was approving the transfers. She had no idea that is what she was doing. She thought she was helping verify her identity to receive a new debit card. The fourth layer was the wire transfers themselves, 6 of them, thousands of dollars each. The largest single transfer was nearly $48,000. Wire transfers are designed to move money quickly, securely, and with finality. That last word, finality, is the one that matters most in the context of fraud. A wire transfer is extremely difficult to reverse once it is cleared. It is not like disputing a credit card charge or requesting a refund on a debit purchase. The money moves to another account, often overseas or through a series of intermediary accounts, and recovering it becomes a difficult investigation that most individuals cannot pursue effectively on their own. The fifth layer was the denial. And this is where federal law and the Supreme Court's framework around consumer banking protection becomes critically important to understand. Chase's legal position rested on a specific principle that runs throughout banking regulation. The Electronic Fund Transfer Act, which is the federal law governing most electronic banking transactions, including wire transfers, places significant responsibility on consumers who authorize transactions, even transactions they were deceived into authorizing. The legal distinction the courts have drawn repeatedly is between unauthorized transactions, where someone makes a transfer without any involvement from the account holder, and authorized transactions, where the account holder themselves participated in the process, even if through deception. When Deborah read those verification codes back to Miss Barbara, she was participating in the authorization process. From Chase's systems perspective, every one of those wire transfers was authorized by the account holder. The codes came from her phone number. They were read aloud by her voice. The system recorded them as valid authorizations. Chase's denial letter reflected exactly this framework. You did not take appropriate steps to protect your account. Translation: you shared the verification codes, which function as authorization, and therefore the transfers appear authorized to our system, and our obligation under the law is to treat authorized transfers as valid. Whether or not you understand that is exactly why you should never share verification codes, no matter what, no matter who asks, no matter what reason they give. No legitimate bank employee will ever ask you for a one-time verification code, not for any reason, not ever. If someone asks you for one, you are being scammed. The Supreme Court and the federal courts have consistently interpreted the Electronic Fund Transfer Act and related consumer protection statutes in ways that create this painful outcome for fraud victims. The burden of establishing that a transaction was unauthorized falls on the consumer, and when the consumer participated in the authorization process, even through deception. And that burden becomes very difficult to meet. Consumer advocates and financial regulators have argued for years that this framework does not adequately protect people from the kind of sophisticated social engineering that was used against. Deborah, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has pushed for stronger protections, but as of now, the legal reality is that if you participated in authorizing the transaction, even unwittingly, your bank has a legal and regulatory basis to deny your claim. This does not mean banks are right. It means banks are operating within the legal framework that currently exists. And that framework is why prevention is not just important, it is the only reliable protection you have. So here is what you need to do to protect yourself. Never respond to a fraud text message by replying to the text or by calling any number that appears in a text, even if the text appears to come from your bank, even if the question seems routine and harmless. If you receive a fraud alert and you want to respond to it, you call the number printed on the back of your debit card, which you obtained before any of this happened. You call that number. You do not click links. You do not reply to the text. You call a number you already know. Never trust an inbound call, regardless of what the caller ID says. Caller IDs are spoofable, and the technology to do it is cheap and legal. Your bank, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, credit unions, online banks, they are almost never going to call you unsolicited. And if someone calls you claiming to be your bank, no matter how calm and professional and helpful they sound, you hang up and you call the bank yourself at a number and you look up independently. Never share verification codes. One-time codes that arrive in text messages or email are the keys to your account. They exist specifically so that the bank can confirm the person making a transaction is actually you. When you share that code with someone else, you are giving that person the ability to authorize anything on your account. No bank employee needs your verification code. No bank employee will ever legitimately ask for it. And if someone asks for one, it is a scam. End the call. Call your bank yourself. So always initiate contact yourself rather than responding to inbound requests. If there is genuinely an issue with your account, you will find out when you call the bank directly using a number you already have. You do not need to act on inbound calls or texts. Lock down your wire transfers. Most banks allow you to add additional security requirements specifically for wire transfers. You can require in-branch approval for any wire transfer. meaning a wire cannot go out without someone physically present at. A branch authorizing it. You can add a verbal passphrase that must be provided before a wire is processed. You can set daily wire limits that prevent large amounts from moving in a single day. Most people never set any of these up because they never think they will need them. Set them up now. Separate your large balances from your everyday spending account. Do not keep your life savings in the same checking account you use to buy groceries. Keep daily spending money in a checking account with a relatively small balance. Keep your savings in a separate high-yield savings account with stronger access restrictions. The damage from a scam is dramatically limited when the account being targeted does not contain your entire savings. If the scam has already happened, when you are watching this, here is what you do immediately, and time matters greatly. Call your bank right now using the number on the back of your card. Ask specifically for the fraud department. Tell them exactly what happened and tell them you need a wire recall attempt initiated on any transfers made within the last 72 hours. Wire recalls are not guaranteed, but they have the best chance when initiated quickly. Go to a branch in person immediately and escalate to a supervisor. Do not accept a phone resolution. Go in person. Ask the supervisor what options exist for wire recall, what fraud protections the bank can put in place, and what the process is for filing a formal fraud claim. So file a police report. Most banks require it before they will process a fraud claim, and it is essential for the paper trail that follows. Do not skip this step. Do not assume it is not necessary. Do it immediately. File a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This creates a formal regulatory record that the bank is required to respond to. It does not guarantee you will get your money back, but it forces a formal review, creates documentation, and puts pressure on the bank in a way that a private claim does not. Banks take CFPB complaints seriously. Freeze your credit at all 3 major bureaus. Even though this was a banking scam rather than a credit fraud, you do not know what other information the scammers gathered during their interactions with you. Freezing your credit prevents new accounts from being opened in your name while you figure out the full scope of what happened. Change everything connected to your compromised account. Your bank login password, your email password, your phone carrier PIN, and enable transaction alerts on every account so that any activity generates an immediate notification to your phone. Here's the hardest truth about all of this. Banks protect systems. They do not protect mistakes. When a transaction appears authorized in their records, they will treat it as authorized. The framework they operate under, established by federal law and interpreted by courts, gives them significant legal cover for denying claims where the account holder participated in the authorization process. That is the reality you're operating in. The public pressure from news coverage, as in Deborah's case, sometimes produces results when everything else fails, but relying on that is not a strategy. Prevention is the strategy, and the prevention is specific, concrete, and immediately actionable. This scam did not work because Deborah Moss was naive or careless. It worked because she was trusting, because she believed in the systems that are supposed to protect her, because she responded to a real Chase text message, answered a call that showed Chase's real phone number, and cooperated with someone who sounded exactly like a calm, professional bank employee. Every single thing she did would have been the right thing to do in a world where caller IDs meant something and where verification codes were only ever requested by the people who sent them. That is not the world we live in anymore, which is why these rules matter, which is why you need to share this with the people in your life who are most likely to trust a caller from their bank, which is why verification codes are cash and you treat them accordingly. If someone contacts you claiming to be your bank, assume it is fake. Slow everything down. Verify independently and never give out a code. Once that money moves, getting it back is an uphill battle that most people lose. This has been the better decision.